Hi, this is Reese Waters from Off Center. This episode, one-sided rivalries, more or less racist with the Redskins, and disco demolition. What genre would you destroy? Plus, soccer analyst Taylor Twellman breaks down clubs versus international, reffing, and how to deal with an ex. Download in the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. 1st take, you got me.
Hello and welcome into First Take. I'm Jen Latta. It is Wednesday here on Radio Takeover Week, and we've got the gang from 98.7 ESPN New York in studio. It is Rick DiPietro, Don LaGreca, and Peter Rosenberg. Guys, excited to be here, ready to mix it up?
Very excited.
I'm very excited.
Television.
This is, I mean, listen.
And you have a lot of experience with that.
All over the years, 15 years, 20 years, eventually, sometimes they put the face for radio on television, and I do.
Well, it's Espn week. Let's be honest, guys. Everyone's in L.A., okay? If Stephen A. is not here, is it really First Take? It's Second Take, okay? We're here. I'm very excited to be here.
Third and fourth.
Right.
Exactly.
We're the freshman B squad.
Exactly.
Hey,
we're the Washington Generals today, but it's okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too.
It's still on TV, and it's still ESPN, so we'll go with it.
We start today with some breaking news, however. A federal appeals court has rejected Tom Brady's attempt to get a new hearing on his Deflategate suspension. Brady was asked for the full second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to hear the case. In April, a 3-judge panel said the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell was within his powers when he suspended the star quarterback 4 games. Peter, what is your reaction to this latest news on the Brady situation?
I think share the reaction with many other people who root for every other team in the NFL but the New England Patriots, and that is good. I have no problem with this. I'm not going to get into like the whole mumbo jumbo of legally what happened and was it fair, is this the right ruling, and what's happened since the accusation. My main point is this. With everything we learned, he cheated, okay? This is the thing that keeps getting buried because now we keep talking about what's happened since then. But let's talk about what this is really about. To me, it's the fact that the Patriots didn't have a running back who put the football on the ground that entire season. Why? Because they were deflating footballs. So I don't care. I mean, fine, maybe 4 games is too much, maybe it's too little, but I think this has to go away. The idea of this potentially going to the Supreme Court is such an utter embarrassment if that's what we're doing with the time of the Supreme Court. So I hope this is the end.
But the grand scheme of this thing is, does Roger Goodell have too much power? This has nothing to do with whether he cheated or not. It's did Roger Goodell overstep his bounds by giving him a 4-game suspension? And the fact is, this was negotiated in the CBA by the players. The players had no problem at the time giving Roger Goodell full power. So the next CBA, they should wake up and realize that maybe we shouldn't give him this kind of power. So when you see this go, it can go all the way to the Supreme Court. Look at the CBA. He has the power to do this. But the players have to change it, and they can't change it until the next CBA is up.
Well, here's the issue, and this is something we talk about on the radio all the time, is how much money this is costing the NFLPA and how much it's costing Tom Brady and the players. Is it worth it? Well, it's worth it for the NFL Players Association for this reason is I've been in those CBA negotiations. To get that many guys on the same page, you're talking about over 1,500 guys on the same page during a CBA negotiation. It's virtually impossible. So if it's Peter, if it's you, if I say, listen, we give Roger Goodell this much power, but we get this much more money, you're saying to yourself, well, I won't be one of those guys because I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to be a guy that breaks the rules and have to deal with Roger Goodell. I'm telling you, Don, we're in a room with owners and the commissioner, and guys are arguing over their own hotel rooms. That's what they want, own hotel rooms.
So DeMaurice Smith can't then complain if Roger Goodell's got too much power. I mean, you have the power, but if you decide I'd rather it be about money or the bigger piece of the pie, then that's fine. But then don't complain after the fact that Roger's got too much power. Negotiate it away from him.
Well, this is what you're doing, though. Now, essentially, you have the power because you can take it to the Supreme Court, and hopefully they rule that Roger Goodell overstepped his power, and you don't have to worry about this in the next CBA negotiations. There was some talk early on that Roger Goodell was leaning towards getting away from discipline, and that was all because of the reaction with the Ray Rice stuff, with the Greg Hardy stuff, and now with the Deflategate. I mean, it's amazing to me, and I've been in, like I said, CBA negotiations, is the owners run the show. As much money as Roger Goodell makes, they make the decision, and Robert Kraft is one of those owners. So I think initially when Robert Kraft was hit with this Deflategate, and it's a star quarterback, it's the face of the NFL, he's thinking, all right, I take the $1 million fine, and I lose some draft picks, Tom Brady's going to be fine because he's the face of the NFL, and I have a great relationship with Roger Goodell, and that all of a sudden doesn't happen. So I think Robert Kraft and Tom Brady are saying, listen, if you look at the rule book for deflated footballs, or if you mess with equipment, it's a $25,000 fine. Now all of a sudden I got 4 games. And you've made the point before, and I agree with you 100%, is that why would you go after Tom Brady? He's the face of the NFL. But, I mean, at this point, you're so deep into it that, I mean, why not keep fighting it? If you're Tom Brady, you have to take this all the way to this.
Well, the motivation for Roger Goodell is if I can go after Tom Brady, then everybody else is going to fall in line because he's the face of the league.
I just have a problem with, here's the thing, if you know you did wrong, right? It's like when your wife gets in a fight with you, we can all relate to this, right? And you know you did wrong, and you're arguing about what the punishment is, but ultimately at the end of the day, taking the fight to the umpteenth degree and all the way to the Supreme Court, when ultimately at the end of the day, you know you did wrong. Right? And I mean, listen, I know I'm oversimplifying the situation, and am I a Patriots hater? Yeah, you're right, I'm a Patriots hater. They're in the middle of a glorious dynasty. They're an incredible team. And do they take advantage of the game? I think they do. So I'm not going to sit here losing sleep about whether or not the punishment doled out was unfair. And frankly, if I'm the Patriots, and I'm even a Patriots fan, I'm thinking, dude, get Garoppolo ready. Let's play these.
Garoppolo?
Yeah, I call him Garoppolo. It's a long story.
The whole thing.
It's the whole thing. Sorry. Get whoever he is. It doesn't matter. Get him ready. You're going to go 2-2 or 1-3, and you're going to win the division anyway. Because guess what? You're in the AFC East. So does it really make that much of a difference? How much do you want to fight and make this a scene when in the end, when they break down what happened, should this go to the Supreme Court? He's still going to end up looking guilty because this is what they did, and he destroyed that cell phone.
But it's bigger than that now. It's gone beyond that because, like I said, it's the NFLPA. Their money's behind this. Their lawyers are behind this. They're looking to strip Roger Goodell of that power because I'm telling you right now, if you go into a negotiation and they bring to you, all right, Roger Goodell is going to give away some of this disciplinary power, and you bring it back to the players and say, listen, we're going to have to give some money back in order to get this, the players are going to say, no. We have our careers are 3 to 5 years. I want to make as much money now as possible, and I won't be that guy that gets suspended because I'm not going to break the rules.
It's also that Eddie Murphy bit. It wasn't me. No, but I saw you walk out of the house with
it. Wasn't me.
It wasn't me. So if Tom denies forever, there's always that slither of doubt in people's mind. Well, maybe he actually didn't do it because look how far he went to prove everybody wrong.
But does anyone really believe that? Like, I mean, I just don't understand. Okay, there's
Patriot fans do.
One of two things, Patriots fans. Either he was deflating footballs and the evidence was on his cell phone, or he was doing some other really shady business on his cell phone that made him want to destroy it, but he destroyed the cell phone.
But have you seen, I mean, all leagues in general, like if you give a league, a commission or whatever it is, your cell phone, I mean, everything gets leaked. Talking about the PED tests in Major League Baseball, those are supposed to be sealed records, then all of a sudden you see names start leaking out. You can't trust that. If I'm his lawyer, I tell him the same thing. Don't give him your cell phone. Does he look guilty? He absolutely does. But if I'm Tom Brady and I like the footballs, Aaron Rodgers already said I like them overinflated. If I'm Tom Brady and I say, I like it about a little bit less than full.
Sure.
Look at the rule book. All right, if I get caught, it's $25,000. I make plenty of money. I can deal with it. Now all of a sudden you're looking at a 4-game suspension, this huge deal. When in that game against Indianapolis, you score all your points in the second half anyway when the footballs were properly inflated. So you're thinking, I'll laugh this thing off. No big deal. There's no way they're going to give me 4 games. And now all of a sudden you're in a situation where you're going to miss 4 games. And I agree with you. You put Garoppolo in, they'll probably go. I mean, they have 3 of the 4 games are at home. They'll probably go 3-1. Tom Brady comes back and always plays his best with a huge chip on his shoulder. So now you're in the AFC East going, if you're the Jets, the Bills, you're going, I'd rather him not be suspended. Don't give him any more motivation, especially with what they've done in the offseason.
We have a ton of motivation going into the season.
And they're the only team that's like that, right? Like in pro sports, I think generally, I mean, you're an athlete, Rick, you know this, but like we, as pundits, we always say like, oh, it's motivation for them. Everyone else, it seems to be crap. In the case of the Patriots, you give them a chip on their shoulder, they actually play with that chip on their shoulder.
Well, it's amazing because we asked this question after LeBron James won the championship in Cleveland. Now, what do you play for? How do you get up for this? And if you're Tom Brady, you're going, all right, I've been to, 6 Super Bowls, I've won 4, I've won MVPs. What motivates me? Well, now this motivates you. Now I want to stick it to Roger Goodell and the rest of the NFL, so now that's more motivation. And I'm telling you what, if you're in the AFC East right now, you got to be pretty scared.
Yeah, it's lose-lose.
So how do you see this playing out? What's next?
I mean, I'm not a good person to ask. I have no idea. I mean, I guess it looks like there's a good chance it'll end up going to the Supreme Court, which to me, I just personally, as an American, get embarrassed by that's a real thing, that we would have the Supreme Court talking about that, considering, when you look at the real world and we step outside of this bubble, in particular the last few weeks in America, we look at all the things we're dealing with as a country. To think that the Supreme Court would spend time on this, to me, is insane. But Rick makes a point. They've gone this far, and this is the NFL. This is not small. This isn't kids' ball. So my guess is it probably does go all the way there.
This is the reason it goes further to the Supreme Court, is because when Roger Goodell made the decision to suspend Tom Brady after Robert Kraft decided, I'll take the fine, I'll lose the draft picks, thinking that in the long run that would make sure that his quarterback didn't get suspended, because Goodell stuck it to Robert Kraft, this isn't something he's going to say, all right, let's just put this to bed, it's not good for the league. He's saying, no, you did this to me, now it's time that you pay the price for it.
I have a feeling that this topic will come up again as the 3 of you will talk about the AFC East a little bit later in the show. For now, we move on to another team that you all are quite familiar with and their situation at quarterback. The standoff between Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Jets has been going on for months. The Jets' reported offer of 3 years, $24 million taken off the table, but Fitzpatrick has rejected it. The Jets are now only 2 weeks from opening training camp and would have to lean on Geno Smith if no deal is reached between the two sides. How in the world, Don, is this going to play out with Fitzpatrick?
I think it's going to play out where Geno Smith is the starting quarterback of the Jets in 2016. He's 25 years old. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. They want to see what the kid can do. They're looking for a franchise quarterback. I think people are looking at the Jets settling for Geno Smith. I think all along they wanted Geno Smith. When McCagney took over, he got Fitzpatrick to be the backup to Geno Smith. IK changed all that. And now they have a chance to go back with the weapons that they acquired over the last couple of years to have their young quarterback, a former second-round pick, be the guy. Fitzpatrick is 33 years old. They can't sign him to a one-year contract because of cap restrictions. He's not the future of the team. Jet fans have to realize that I think the plan may have been all along not settling for Geno Smith, but wanting Geno Smith to be their starting quarterback.
Yeah, I 100% disagree with that. I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick was brought in by Mike McCagnon to be the backup. I think he was brought in as an insurance policy because Geno Smith isn't McCagnon's guy. That was a John Idzik pick. And I think he'd seen enough of Geno Smith to realize that we need a solid veteran that knows Chan Gailey's system. And remember, the reason Geno Smith was given the starting job in training camp is because Ryan Fitzpatrick was coming off a broken leg. And from all accounts in OTAs, he was terrible. So now Geno gets punched in the face, which, having been a professional athlete in the locker room, that'd be like someone walking up to Henrik Lundqvist and punching him in the face. It would never happen. You're not going to punch your starting quarterback in the face if there's a level of respect for him and his leadership. So that right there for me says, I'm all set with Geno Smith. I mean, forget the fact that he's 11 and 18 in his career as Jets starting quarterback. I'm fine with that. But when you have so many players, the nucleus of your team, right? So here at ESPN, we powerfully rank things. And when you powerfully ranked the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, number one was Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. 26 combined touchdowns. Now you make it triplets and you add Geno Smith instead of Ryan Fitzpatrick to the mix. Now they're 24th.
Now, I'm not going to take it from either angle. I think both of you guys have good points. I'll tell you this. I'm just looking at it from a Fitzpatrick point of view. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle between you guys about how the Jets feel about Geno. But I do think every day Ryan Fitzpatrick sees his value as high as he does and waits, the worse it gets for Ryan Fitzpatrick. We are approaching training camp. And Geno Smith is practicing right now. He's out there playing, and he's getting treated. Just this week, an article came out, one of the first articles written about Geno Smith and the Jets without a mention of Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's like Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't know what his full resume is. It's like he's only looking at last year and doesn't know. The Jets have a whole body of work to look at, and it's not worth the money he thinks he's worth.
He's banking on that they can't possibly want Geno Smith to be their starting quarterback. Eventually they'll cave. And Rick, you're right. I'm sure they're not in love with Geno Smith. They obviously saw the lack of leadership. They saw the interceptions, the bad decisions that he made when he was younger. But they also realize he's young, and it's a franchise that needs a young quarterback and a franchise quarterback, and I think they're willing to take the chance to see in this last year of his contract, maybe we can have something here, because that's the guy you want to build around, a 25-year-old, not a 33, going to be 34-year-old that has the resume that you're talking about.
And that's a great point, Don. And here's the thing. Like, they can't sign him for the one-year deal he would want, so they have to give him 12 up front and then less the following year. 6.
Spread it out, yep.
Spread it out. He doesn't want that for whatever reason. But the bottom line is, how long did they see Ryan Fitzpatrick as this team after this year? You're going to go 34, 35-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick? That's the future?
Well, sorry, Jet fans, you're probably looking at an 8-8 season. Tougher schedule, lot of issues. The team actually may improve.
8-8 regardless who's under center?
Yeah, I believe that they're looking at, don't fall in love with 10-6. It was an easier schedule. A lot of things broke their way. They can actually improve as a football team and win less games because of their schedule. So if I'm going to go 8-8, do I want to go 8-8 with a 33, 34-year-old that has got no future with the organization?
Let's be clear, a
journeyman quarterback. Or maybe we catch Geno Smith finally maturing. Remember, Phil Simms was an injury machine when he first came in, and then he leads the Giants to a Super Bowl. A guy like Jeff Hostetler sitting on the sidelines and then finally getting his chance and winning. Sometimes guys could be late bloomers. I think they want to just see maybe he's matured into the quarterback that the previous regime thought that they drafted. I'm not saying they're fully in love with him, but because of the age and the contract situation, he might be the better option long term for them.
A couple things here for me is I can't sit here and argue that Geno Smith's ceiling is not higher than Ryan Fitzpatrick. But if you told me Ryan Fitzpatrick gives me the 31 touchdowns again this season for the Jets, then he's worth the $12 million he's asking for, because in my estimation, Christian Hackenberg is probably going to be your quarterback of the future, or you hope so if you're Mike McCagnon, right? I can't think of a better veteran quarterback to bridge that gap to Christian Hackenberg, who's been, by all accounts, horrendous in OTAs than Ryan Fitzpatrick. He has a relationship with Chan Gailey. And listen, this was something that Bryce Harper said at the All-Star game. He's talking about Daniel Murphy. And sometimes athletes, when asked questions, you can either gush about somebody or you can kind of, the less you say, the more you say. Bryce Harper went out of his way to talk about Daniel Murphy being the MVP. When you hear guys talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick, glue guy, leadership, all your best players go out of their way to let you know how much they love him. And you can't put a price on that, because I'm telling you right now, this team, with the schedule they have, first 7 weeks, you can't afford to have any distractions. And you already have one with Mo Wilkerson, and the longer this goes on, the worse it is for Geno Smith. Because now Geno Smith's constantly looking over his shoulder going, when's this deal going to get done? When's this deal going to get done? And it's going to affect him.
Don, if they're interested in Geno Smith, if that's the direction they want to go, why haven't they moved on verbally, outwardly from Ryan Fitzpatrick?
That's a great question, just because I guess they believe that, for at least from the beginning, that it would probably be a PR disaster if they just announced that Geno Smith is going to be our guy, coming off of what happened with a lack of leadership.
Well, and the way New York felt about him before.
And then Fitzpatrick coming off this season. But if you've noticed, as this negotiation has gone on, or lack of a negotiation, the public perception is starting to swing away from Fitzpatrick. So maybe that was the design, like, hey, we'll put out feelers, let the fans know that we want to bring Fitzpatrick back. Now they've painted Fitzpatrick as the bad guy. He doesn't want to be here. Now some of the players beginning to talk up Geno Smith. I think that probably was just a PR move to try to get the fan base backing Geno or Plan B, because if we're having this conversation a few months ago, people are going nuts that Fitzpatrick isn't re-signing. I'm not sensing that from Jet Nation now. I think they're ready to move on. They're almost insulted Fitzpatrick is playing hardball.
But Rick, let me ask you a question.
Yep.
So what if you're Fitzpatrick and they're offering you, it's 12 the first year, right, and then 6 the 2 following?
Yep.
What's so bad about that? They'll probably pay you the 12 and then cut you after that anyway.
Well,
it's
your last deal, right? So if you sign, you lock yourself into 3 years, and now it's their options for years 2 and 3. If you do give them 31 touchdowns, now you're not a free agent. Now you can't restructure a deal. You're in the same position you are now, where you have to, but now you're making $6 million, and the year after that, $6 million. You want the control. So he says, yeah, $12 million 1 year deal. That way, if I'm that confident in myself, I'll bet on myself, go to be a free agent again next year, and make that similar kind of money. He's not. He hasn't come to.
What a risky bet it is with the career he's had.
Offers.
Well,
and where's he going to go?
But how many times have you seen quarterbacks go down? This is what I'll say about the Jets. Is this Mike McCagnon? He goes into Woody Johnson's office. I'm sure every GM sells a 5-year plan. Correct? So you sign Revis, you get Brandon Marshall, you make all these moves. You're going from 4 wins. Do you really think if you're Mike McCagnon, you told Woody Johnson, first year, spend all this money, we'll go 4 to 10 wins, week 17, we'll control our own destiny and possibly make the playoffs? There's no chance. This is fast forwarded to year 3, so you don't extend Ryan Fitzpatrick, you don't extend Muhammad Wilkerson. Now you're looking at going, all right, Jets fans expect us to take a step forward, and our schedule's that much harder. So how do you keep this momentum going when you know, to a man, you look in the mirror and go, I don't care who's under center.
We probably can't do better than we were last year. You're right.
When does it start handicapping the team? Has it already?
I think it probably has a little bit, because I think in football it's a little bit different. I'm used to a hockey locker room. It's you have the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, and from all accounts, between Darrelle Revis, I mean, we've had Nick Mangold, all these guys come on the shows and talk about how much they love Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's that glue guy that brings everyone. They love him. So I think if you're one of those guys, and you always talk about this, you sign Matt Forte. He's a 30-year-old running back. You have Brandon Marshall, who's 32. The core of this team is ready to win now. So as a GM, as a coach, Todd Bowles wants to win now. That's what every coach wants to do. It's not necessarily always the GM's plan. They wanted to make the best decisions for the organization. But how do you sell that to your team? We had a chance to sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, which would, in my opinion, be our best foot forward, regardless of the schedule. But because we don't want to pay him, we're going to go with Geno Smith. How do you sell that to a veteran guy that needs to win now?
At the same time, if they get to training camp and Ryan's not there taking snaps, how does that start affecting people? As much as they love him, it does start turning a little.
Right, you know as a player that once they open camp, whoever the quarterback is their quarterback. Yeah. You can't worry about the guys that aren't there. You only worry about the guys that are there. So when camp opens and Geno Smith looks like the #1 quarterback, they'll make the adjustment.
But unless they have made a definitive turn of the page, there are going to be questions and distractions, and all the players are going to be dealing with the Fitzpatrick or Smith situation, which I do then starts to affect.
Well, I think the question you asked, Don, was the perfect question. If you were sold on Geno Smith, then just end this now. The contract negotiations are off, the offer's off the table. I mean, you've had Todd Bowles say that Fitz is the starting quarterback. You've had McCagnon say that Fitz is the starting quarterback. I mean, you can leak whatever you want in the media, but in those closed-door meetings, I think they all hope that Ryan Fitzpatrick comes to his senses and signs. But it is. I mean, it's good business. It's Mike McCagnon saying, this is what you're worth. I'm not going to overspend for it. But the question I asked yesterday on the radio was this, Don. If you look at the Muhammad Wilkerson situation, right, it's $15.7 million. It's a franchise tag. Who wins you more games? Is it Mo Wilkerson that wins you more games on the defensive side of the ball, or would it be Ryan Fitzpatrick if you just got rid of Muhammad Wilkerson, or you found a way before to trade Muhammad Wilkerson and give Ryan Fitzpatrick some of that money.
Now, really quick, think about this. The rumored first offer was between $7 and $8 million, right? Mm-hmm. What is that? That's backup quarterback money. Is it possible that their interest in bringing Fitzpatrick back totally was having him back up Geno anyway? See, everybody falls in love with those numbers last year. Maybe the Jets just didn't buy into it.
Well, I don't think, and Peter spoke to this as far as career is concerned, I think that was his ceiling. I think that's as good as you expect from Ryan Fitzpatrick. And he was tremendous. I think we all underestimated how good he could be. It was just the perfect mix with him and Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. It just worked perfectly, Chris Ivory. But I think you get into a situation, the one thing you can criticize Mike McCagan for is, as you see how well he's playing, as you see all this team camaraderie kind of starting to build, why not extend him? Knowing that when we get into this free agent market,
I'll tell you
you're
what.
going to see guys like Brock. I mean, but Peter, how do you, as if you're Ryan Fitzpatrick?
No, and you see Brock Osweiler's money. I get it. It's very tough. But here's the bottom line. There's a disservice that Ryan did to himself, and the same thing happened with Kirk Cousins in Washington. In the last game of the season, that really meant something when they wanted to find out, is Ryan Fitzpatrick different than the Ryan Fitzpatrick of old? Is he really a beast? Let's be honest. You don't blame the whole game on him, but he didn't show up week 17, right? And they don't make the playoffs. I think he would have sealed up his money with a great performance that week, and he didn't do it.
So why can't we look at it and say they brought him in to be a backup quarterback, they offered him backup quarterback money, that maybe they just didn't buy into 2015, and they're not swayed and just say, sorry, Fitz, you're a backup quarterback.
Because the alternative is Geno Smith.
Right, that's what changes everything.
I think that's what a lot of people think.
And again, I'm not here to defend Geno Smith. His resume is his resume. But he's young and he's also a free agent. What if he backups Fitz? Fitz ends up turns into the quarterback that he was in Houston, in Buffalo, in Cincinnati, his entire career. And then Geno Smith walks as a free agent, and at 26 he lands a job and becomes the next great quarterback. Right?
It's something you have to think about.
These are the things that Geno Smith dreams about at night.
There are other people who dream about it as well.
About a few, they literally have not had a franchise quarterback since Joe Namath. Now, I'm not saying that Geno Smith is going to become that, but he's the age, and he hasn't really played with weapons to where they feel, why not give this a shot? We know what Fitzpatrick is. That ceiling you talk about, I think they look at that as being worth more than what you consider.
And last thing in defense of Geno, and there's been a lot of Geno defense, let's be honest. I remember talking on the show last year, before Geno got punched in the face, we did think, this is going to be his real opportunity to get a look. They always were sort of half in, half out. They gave him the keys, and then they take them back a little bit. Last year, he was going to get the keys. Now, Rick, you made a great point. The fact that he was even able to be punched in the locker room is very telling. But the bottom line is I do feel for the kid. He was young. He may have made mistakes, which may have led to that situation. But if the worst-case scenario happens here and Geno ends up getting his opportunity, there is a silver lining there. He is a talented guy. I do think he has a higher ceiling than Ryan Fitzpatrick. And your best-case scenario is somehow Fitzpatrick somehow ekes out another season like last year. But do we really think that happens again? I'm not sure.
But like Don mentioned, though, now Geno Smith's going to be a free agent. So what if Geno Smith does give you, he gives you the exact same numbers as Ryan Fitzpatrick gives you, right? Now you're looking, he's on the open market. Brock Osweiler played how many games? Seven career games, and he got that much money. What do you think Geno Smith is going to be asking for? And you still have Muhammad Wilkerson you got to deal with.
And Geno. And because I'm with you. I'm not in love with Geno Smith, but he never got a chance to play with Marshall. He never really had a chance to play with a healthy Decker. Seems like Decker was always hurt that first year with Geno. So I'm kind of curious to see how he might be able to perform with Forte out of the backfield, with a healthy Marshall, a healthy Decker.
Fitzpatrick can end this conversation. He can end this conversation. But that's the bottom line. End the conversation.
This is the beauty of New York, though. It's so funny because first couple weeks, we need Ryan Fitzpatrick back. God forbid we don't want Geno Smith. Now, as you start to see things leak out, you see the offer, people calling in, no, forget it. We've seen what he is. That's all he is.
For sure.
Yeah, you wear out because he's not there. And again, that's why from the beginning I've been saying, Ryan, every day you wait. Listen, you can bet on yourself. I get it. But, dude, you could end up, shout out to DJ Khaled, playing yourself. So don't not get a job because of this, Ryan.
Welcome back to First Take. We've got Rick, Don, and Peter from 98.7 New York joining us today. So let's stay in New York. How about the changes at the Garden this year? Among the new faces with the Knicks, former Bulls Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, as well as new head coach in Jeff Hornacek. New York finished near the bottom of the East with only 32 wins last season. Y'all remember that. So, Peter, what would you say with all of these moves is the state of the Knicks right now?
Better than the state was last year. I mean, listen, let's let's get everyone to calm down. Of course, anyone who's freaking out and thinking they're heading straight to the championship, well, first of all, the championship's already been decided. We know that Golden State's winning. So let's rule that out. We know Cleveland's winning these. But let's humor ourselves and talk about the rest of the Eastern Conference. If you are a Knicks fan, you have to be pretty happy. I mean, the team just had, with the exception of excitement about Porzingis, there was no energy, no belief they could do anything special. Now, is there a worst-case scenario in which the players, in which Jennings and Rose just aren't able to play? Yeah, that's your worst-case scenario. But if I'm a Knicks fan, and I'm not, but if I was, I'm excited that they rolled the dice. I do have some concerns that I think they've totally taken a departure from trying to follow whatever Phil Jackson's plan was. It seems like they just said, screw it, let's just get who's good and available and see what can happen. But if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm going to the Garden regularly, I'm excited that they're big-time players who may play well, if they're healthy, and may encourage other people to want to come to New York.
Well, I think when you look at the Knicks, Donnie, and tell me if you agree or disagree, is that we've said this. If Carmelo Anthony decided he was going to demand a trade, he was going to waive his no-trade clause and leave, I don't think Phil Jackson would have been that upset. Because I think they signed Carmelo Anthony because in New York, we all know, if you're going to rebuild, you can't really rebuild. You can retool, but you need a superstar. Because they need to have Madison Square Garden filled, and Carmelo Anthony's that superstar. And give him some credit because he wants to be a part of New York. What's interesting is this, is that Phil Jackson is a guy who all we heard the entire time for the coaching search was he wanted Kurt Rambis. He wanted a guy he had a relationship with. He talked to Luke Walton. Luke Walton goes to L.A. Good decision for him. But all of a sudden, now we have Jeff Hornacek. Where's the relationship? You ask Jeff Hornacek, do you have a relationship with Phil? Well, the only time I ever spoke to Phil was to say congratulations on a championship. So I don't think anyone knows. I don't even think Steve Mills knows, the GM of the team, what Phil Jackson's plan is. I think when he looked at free agency this year and he looked at point guard, which the team desperately needed a point guard, anything is better than Jose Calderon. I mean, you want to talk about running an offense backwards? I mean, go back in time with him with the basketball. Is Derrick Rose was, via trade, better than sinking a max deal into Mike Conley Jr. or dealing with a guy like Rajon Rondo. So this is a no-brainer. It's a one-year deal. Yeah, has he dealt with injuries? Absolutely. He gave you 66 games last year. He was pretty productive. And again, when you look at the East, I mean, look at the East. Outside of Cleveland, maybe Boston, Toronto, it's not hard to believe going from 32 wins with the additions of Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Brandon Jennings was a sneaky good signing, Courtney Lee, good shooter, that this team could be a 4th seed.
Don't forget they re-signed Sasha Vujacic. Okay?
It's a depth move, Peter.
It's a depth move. Don't you forget it.
Depth, too. Very important depth. When Phil got here, he got here to get the big free agent. And I think he began to realize in his 3 years here, nobody wants to come and play for the Knicks. You saw the parade when LeBron James was kind of trolling the Knicks, when he was congratulating J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert as if the Knicks were just some clown show. If that's the perception of the Knicks around the NBA, the only way to change that is to play meaningful games, actually have a playoff team. If the top of the mountain's the championship, the Knicks the last few years were on a dinghy in the middle of the ocean. Now they're on dry land and they can move forward. So is it the second round? Is it the conference final? We know they're not winning a championship. But if you're going to change the perception of the Knicks, they have to play big-time games. Plus, you got to get Porzingis in the playoffs, see what he can do in big-time spots, and then change the perception of the team. You can go the Sixers route and just mail in seasons and be irrelevant. That's a way. Trade Carmelo Anthony, be irrelevant for 4 years. Or you can try to make the playoffs and change the way the Knicks look. And I think Phil did that.
And I'll tell you what, they owed it to Carmelo Anthony to do this. And, you know, on our station, we're actually very kind to Carmelo. Carmelo, come to the station. We love the guy. I don't think he gets enough credit in New York. This is a guy who wants to be there. In a situation that a lot of people wouldn't want to be, he loves being there. His family's there, wants to be in New York. And he deserved to have them go out and get some players to at least let them be contenders and let him play in meaningful games in New York. Because you're right, they're not going to win the East. But is it unreasonable to think that this team could potentially, if everyone stayed healthy, get the 2-3 seed? It's conceivable. No one bet on it, but it's conceivable.
I think the Chicago Bulls are going to take a step back. I think the Miami Heat are going to take a step back. But also what you need to understand is when you draft a guy like Kristaps Porzingis and you realize how good he could be a superstar, and you have Carmelo Anthony, whose contract now doesn't look that crazy with all the money. I mean, look how much money Kent Bazemore signs for. So, I mean, him making $24 million doesn't seem like a lot of money right now for his talent. Is you want to make sure that before Carmelo's skill erodes to the point where he's not a star in the league, you've developed Kristaps Porzingis to at least your second best option. And I think that's what you're doing here. And I like the fact that you got a guy like Derrick Rose to handle the ball, and you got a Courtney Lee, because I still want Kristaps Porzingis to be a focal point of this offense to make sure they develop him as they're still trying to maintain winning. And as far as Phil Jackson signing free agents because he's Phil Jackson and throwing his rings on the table, then why don't the Celtics hire Bill Russell? He's got more rings than anyone. Because you don't, as a free agent, when the money's the same, Go to where you like the team president. He's not coaching you. You're not playing with him. There's only one guy in the NBA right now that is truly a recruiter, and you'll take less money to play with, and that's LeBron James. That's the only guy. The only guy in the NBA.
When Pat Riley threw his rings on the table to get LeBron to go to Miami, if he did that in South Beach. If he was the T-Wolves general manager, would that have worked?
The only reason they had that meeting was because Dwayne Wade decided that let's do this together and let's make the big three. And let's face it, Pat Riley's the reason that LeBron James left Miami.
Andy Wade, potentially. So, I mean, let's be clear. It does, and who would have guessed? It's just, you can't add things up. I'm a Celtics fan. I never would have guessed when things started with Danny Ainge that he was going to be this basketball mind you would ultimately trust. It's not working so far with Phil. That's something that Knicks fans do have to realize. I'm not saying you give up and abandon ship, but I do think what they did this year is a sign to me that regardless of what the initial plan may have been, they're going to go to whatever route it takes to make this team relevant.
What isn't working with Phil?
It just doesn't seem like he has it. First of all, the thing that we talk about every day, if you want to know the New York chatter every day, was about the triangle.
Of course.
And it just not being something that seemed to work in New York. They didn't have the talent for it that made sense. And then, of course, when you look at D. Rose, you're like, well, is D. Rose the guy that makes sense for this? Not particularly. He's not hands down a triangle guy.
I also wonder, when you go back to the first reason they brought Phil here. First of all, there was going to be a protest outside Madison Square Garden for the state of the Knicks. That got canceled the second that they hired Phil. That was also part of it. But I wonder deep down inside, did Jim Dolan think maybe I can convince him to coach this team at some point? Right? Because you're paying him $12 million for what? He had no executive experience at all, right? Forcing a triangle on everybody. Would he be able to convince free agents to come here? I wonder if deep down inside he thought, maybe it'll become such a mess that Phil would coach.
You're all about the conspiracy theories today. I'm liking it. It's very Illuminati speaking.
That's what makes Phil Phil.
Nice tie in there. Well, you go from the triangle, then you got the current rhombus. So now we have Jeff Hornacek. But I will say this, Don, about Phil Jackson. I think Phil Jackson was the right guy for this reason. Because in New York, like I said, you can't truly rebuild. You have to retool because of media, because of fans. There's just too much pressure. And in order to get Phil out of L.A., because I think at some point he felt Jeannie Buss was going to get rid of her brother and he'd be back reunited with her and take over the Lakers, is we have to throw money at him. Why else would he move from L.A. and be the president of the Knicks unless we throw – and it's not our money. It's not Stephen A. Smith's money. He always talks about the $60 million. It's not your money. That's what it took to get him here. And he might be the only guy that's willing to sit there and laugh at the media, laugh at the fans, and do whatever he thinks is right for this team. Because that's exactly what he's doing. Everything he tells you in the media, he does the opposite of.
But you gotta, here's the thing about Phil, regardless of what you think about what he's doing, you have to respect the love he has for that organization. Because in terms of lifestyle decision, I mean, this is just the worst job in the world. The guy left L.A., being with his girlfriend, could have just worked with the Lakers, had a cushy lifestyle where he rides his bike and does his thing in Los Angeles, to come to cold, nasty New York, be away from your loved ones, and really get trashed nonstop. I know it's a ton. Okay, it's a ton of money.
$12 million.
He's already rich, though. What's the $12 million?
The sacrifice.
No, but I'm just,
$12 million.
What is? He's 70 years old.
Fire for $12 million.
But he's 70 years old and he's been rich for 20 years, 30, 40 years. He's been rich. The money's great, but the bottom line is he wants to win for the Knicks. It's where he plays. He wants to win.
I know he does, but Rick makes the point. You'd keep. Well, he wouldn't do it for 6. He wouldn't do it for 8. He wouldn't do it for 10. All right, now 12. All right, now he's making the sacrifice. Now he wants to turn the Knicks around. $12 million.
Don, I hear you, but I'm just telling you, if I'm Phil Jackson, I check out the dumpster fire that the Knicks organization is, and let's be honest, it's from the top down, okay? This isn't a thing. Again, I'm a Redskins fan, so I know what it is to see an organization that's in a tough spot from all the way at the top down. It can take a long time and be really hard to turn that around. And I think if I'm Phil, I would have thought long and hard about, is this really what I want to do? $12 million, $12 million. He's rich. Is this how you want to end your career? And if it doesn't work out, let's be honest, this guy, one of the most elite basketball minds of all time, he's Red Auerbach, he's Bill Russell, he's in that ilk. If he leaves this a failure, that's the end of his basketball career.
Yeah, but I don't think it affects his legacy.
Yeah, because he's a coach. He didn't coach the Knicks. You're absolutely right. It doesn't affect his legacy. So he's a failed executive. So was Bill Parcells.
Don't competitors compete? I still think he takes it incredibly. He wants to win bad.
Sure. First of all, you can't put a price tag on a Vision Quest. You're right. You Harley have a little Vision Quest. That costs you some money. No, but I agree with you, Peter. Is that he wants to win. He wants to compete. But I also think when you talk about the triangle system, you hear, wow, it's the triangle. It's get the ball to Michael, get the ball to Scotty. You got Shaq. You got Kobe. He wants to prove, and he wanted to prove at least, that his system, the triangle system, regardless of players, the people he handpicks, and we always hear that the people he handpicks can win in this league. And I think he's come to the realization that with Carmelo, who doesn't necessarily fit the triangle, in the way now that Golden State plays and everyone else plays, is maybe I can win with this triangle, so maybe we need to adapt it and kind of bring it up now to 2016.
The Kurt Rhombus, if you will.
Kurt Rhombus.
Rhombus. I've heard all of you guys talk about the fact that this is not a championship team, but to me it sounds like NBA purgatory for a while for the New York Knicks.
Baseball's second half kicks off with one of the sport's fiercest rivalries when the Red Sox travel to the Bronx to face the Yankees.
Forget it. Home run to right. Carlos Beltran.
The Red Sox and Yankees. Coverage begins Saturday at 3 Eastern and Sunday at 7 Eastern. On ESPN Radio, presented by Harley-Davidson.
I've read several stories suggesting that that's something that the league wants, this notion of two super teams, that it's a huge television attraction. I don't think it's good for the league, just to be really clear. And, I will say whoever's the prohibitive favorite, try telling that to the 430 other players who aren't on those two teams. We have the greatest collection of basketball players in the world in our league, and so I'm not making any predictions, but there's no question when you aggregate a group of great players, they have a better chance of winning than many other teams. On the other hand, there's lots of things that have to happen. We'll see what happens in Golden State. You had a great chemistry among a group of players, and you're adding another superstar to the mix. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But just to be absolutely clear, I do not think that's ideal.
So NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has concerns over Kevin Durant's move to Golden State, does not think it is good for the league to have super teams. Don, do you agree with Silver's statement?
I don't like it, but let's face what he said here. He is the boss, or his bosses are the owners. He works for the owners. So I'm sure he's getting complaints from all over the league. We don't have a chance to win. What's going on here? Because let's face it, you talked about the Knicks being in purgatory. So are 28 teams in the NBA. They know they can't win a championship. They can be relevant, they can play well, but they're not going to win a championship. So I understand the frustration, and he's trying to talk to those owners in Minnesota and Sacramento that don't seem to have a chance at all. But how is it hurting the league? The ratings are spectacular. Every time we talk NBA on our show, the phones absolutely blow up. The Knicks had a huge day in which they signed all these players, and still the number one topic was Kevin Durant, a former Thunder, going to the Warriors. That has nothing to do with New York. The NBA is popping right now. I think in this country, it is the second most popular sport behind the NFL. So how is it really hurting the league? Is it hurting a lot of the league because a lot of players can't win, but the NBA as a whole have benefited tremendously because the fans still love it?
I don't know. My thing is this. I don't want to beat up KD, because I'm a hack and he's my friend and I'm happy for him. Get your money, bud. But if I'm being real from a competition standpoint, I got to agree with the commission on this one. I have a tendency to think when you look at the schedule now, last year there was X amount of teams that when you see them come up on the ESPN or TNT schedule in a given week, you go, ooh, that's must-see TV. I'm going to stay up and watch that game. If hopefully Westbrook stays, and that'll keep one eyeball on it. But Oklahoma City just changed. They are no longer a must-see team. And the more players that are aggregated onto just a couple of teams, the less teams you want to watch. So from his standpoint, as a business model and trying to make money through television, there are only a couple of teams you care about watching.
Well, we always call the East the pillow fight, right? And you looked at the West, you looked at OKC, Golden State, and if you're Kevin Durant, you look at your options, and he said this is going to be a basketball decision, and he wasn't the kind of guy that wanted to stick in OKC and then have to deal with these questions again next year. Had a talk with Russell Westbrook. I'm sure Russell told him, I'm probably not going to be back either, so do what you have to do. If you're Kevin Durant, and this is what kind of drives me crazy a little bit, is when you talk about a college athlete, everyone gets up in arms when the coach leaves. Now this kid is left at a college that he decided to go to with a new coach and everything else. The fact of the matter is you were recruited and you picked the school you wanted to go to. Kevin Durant didn't pick to be drafted by the Seattle Supersonics and end up in OKC. So now this is his first opportunity to go where he wants, to have fun. The only thing I could possibly criticize Kevin Durant for is he was drawn to the culture of Golden State, the locker room culture. You're the face of OKC. You're the leader of that team. You created the culture. So now all of a sudden you want someone else's culture? You're supposed to be responsible for that in OKC. So listen, had the opportunity to do it. I'll tell you who I blame is sneaker companies, because all those rules put into the CBA, bird rights and everything else, they don't mean anything. When you have $300 million guaranteed in a shoe deal, you're willing to leave $14 million on the table knowing I go wherever I want. That money's already made. I can bet on myself. I can do 1 year, 2 year deals with opt-outs because I'm not worried about injury because I have all that money already locked up.
And you talk about national television, right? all these sports have been top-heavy. You look at baseball, who's on national television? It's the Red Sox, it's the Giants, it's the Yankees, it's the Dodgers.
And the Cubs.
And the Cubs, if they're good, right? You know, hockey, it's the Flyers, it's the Red Wings, it's the Rangers, it's the Blackhawks, right? Football's a different story. Let's just shelve that. So really, every sport's kind of top-heavy. There's always going to be teams that nobody cares about. There's always, so you're always going to try to put the teams that are the most popular. So yeah, so Oklahoma City falls out. But they'll still make sure it's the Warriors and the Cavaliers.
Just think about it right now. If you would have to say right now, let's go through the list next year and think about whose games I really want to see, where I don't care who they're playing. If they're on, I'm going to check it out. It's very limited. It could be, if I'm being honest, only Golden State for me. If it's Celtics aren't playing, I'll watch Golden State. Cleveland, I don't even really care about until they're 60 games in and LeBron starts getting ready for playoff mode. So how much do you really care? I mean, we can't deny the fact that, listen, I think Kevin Durant had the right to do whatever he wanted. You made a great point, Rick. This is his first opportunity to choose. Do I wish he'd chosen to start a legacy in Boston? Yes, I think that would have been an amazing fit. I still think there's a chance he'll do that after 1 year in Golden State. But the fact of the matter is, now he ended up going to the team that beat him. You know, we can't get away from that. Like, it's not his responsibility to be a role model to children. But at the same time, if you wouldn't tell your kid, here's what happens. If you're not doing too well, if you can't beat this team, dude, just leave in the offseason and go join the team that's beating.
But he had earned that right, though, by the position he was in the NBA.
Well, he has every right. By the way, and every player has every right. And from a right standpoint, I'm happy. I want the players control the league more than the owners. But from a straight-up competition standpoint, he was this close to beating them. They should have beaten them, and instead he joined the team.
Well, what's even worse, had he played better in Game 6, they probably do win that series. But, Don, this is how I look at it. And I agree with you 100% on the fact that if you're Kevin Durant and you have the option to actually make more money, go back to OKC, with Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams will be better. It looks like you're going to have a better team. You trade Serge Ibaka. You had that team 3-1. And I think it speaks more to the things you hear from Charles Barkley and Larry Bird. Could you imagine, like, as a professional athlete, that'd be like me losing in 7 games, up 3-1, and then deciding the next year to sign with the Pittsburgh Penguins, the team that just beat. No, I have a year, an opportunity with the team that I think is just as good as Golden State to finally rectify that situation and get to the finals. That would have been the nice thing to see him do. But again, it's his decision. He wants to win. And now we look at the NBA. It's all about championships. It's at some point, it's not what you did in the regular season. It's only strictly about championships.
But I'm with you. It's like that championship going to weigh as much as LeBron's championship in Cleveland, or if he had won the championship in OKC, or went to the Knicks and did it, or went to the Celtics and did it.
Please don't say things that are unrealistic.
But I do kind of like the fact that he doesn't care what we think, right? He doesn't weigh the championship. He's going to have it. He's going to win that, and there's something to admire about somebody who doesn't care what First Take thinks, or 98.7 ESPN thinks, or what the average fan thinks. That's kind of cool.
And I liked what he said. I mean, the bottom line is, the thing we can't relate to on it, you got to understand this much more as an athlete, he liked it. He felt good. He thought they were nice. Like, anybody out there, have you ever gotten a new job? It's daunting. The first time I came to Bristol, it's like a little scary. Like, you go walk around. We've all been through it. He went to Golden State. He never really spent time in the Bay. He liked everyone. They made him feel comfortable. Oh, yeah, they're really good. Oh, San Francisco's a great city. It does make sense. I have no problem with it. But from competition standpoint, you can't disagree with Silver that much.
I do think that Kevin Durant, unfortunately, is getting a lot of the brunt of this because it is the relevant situation. But to Silver's point, what could the league do to eliminate this from happening in the future?
That's tough.
Well, I think the league, I mean, they tried with the bird rights to make it, incentivize you staying with your team. I mean, does it get to a point where you have a franchise tag in the NBA where, regardless of what the athlete wants to do, you can franchise him and make sure he stays with his team? Because let's be honest, you look at OKC now, Russell Westbrook leaves for LA or for the New York Knicks, which makes the Derrick Rose deal even better. Now you have money to spend, hopefully, on Russell Westbrook next year when he's a free agent. What do you do? Now, if you're one of those fans, they sell that place out. That place looks like one of the best places to watch a game. You watch the game there, you got to hope you're so bad that you get the first overall draft pick, and it's another stud. It's another Westbrook. It's another Durant. So now you're in a full-blown rebuild, and you see teams that are rebuilding. Like, the Celtics did everything and anything to trade draft picks to get a superstar. The 76ers, the same thing. You need that superstar, and let's face it, when all the money's equal, you want to win championships, and the quickest way for Kevin Durant to win a championship is go play in Golden State. And you know what? No one's going to be saying anything about his decision if they win 74 games in a championship.
You guys like the idea of a franchise tag in the NBA?
It. Love it. Now, I don't know how much the owners are going to want to go to the mat for it. Are they willing to possibly cancel a season when the next CBA is up? Because I can't imagine the players going for it. Players benefit so much because of the floor. Guys that aren't really worth that much are signing because these teams have to get to the floor of the salary cap. Players love the system. They love the freedom. They love the money that they're making. What are the owners willing to do to get it? Because I think the franchise tag is a perfect way to try to keep those guys there.
As long as the money's there, you know, the money's commensurate with what they would get on the free market, right? I don't want to see players not have the opportunity because they get tagged. That is where it becomes unfair in favor of the owners. But I do think a franchise tag that's fair money-wise, that's an interesting thought.
Well, Don, to speak to your point about the owners, they just committed, over $3 billion in salaries. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to sit out a season and not have to pay these guys these crazy salaries. Probably saving them. They're probably making money by sitting a year out.
It only took 9 wins, but the Redskins won the NFC East for the first time since 2012. Despite Washington's success last season, Vegas oddmakers have the Cowboys slotted as the favorite to take the division this year. Can't say that I disagree with him, Peter, but what do you think? Who wins the NFC East in 2016?
Well, God forbid.
Don't do it.
God forbid Vegas not have Dallas be the odds-on favorite to win the division. And for the record, I'm not your typical Redskins fan in that I can be very objective about the Cowboys. And I certainly think they're a reasonable pick to win the division. But I don't think the Redskins were a fluke last year. I think they were a pretty solid football team by the end of the year. And then I think what they did in the draft, and most notably, of course, going out and getting Josh Norman, I can't see how they're not the favorite to win the division again. I know they're not a sexy pick. No one seems to be sure of Kirk Cousins yet, and I get it. Much like Ryan Fitzpatrick in the Redskins' last game against the Packers in the playoffs, he was underwhelming, and I think that is the reason he got the franchise tag and didn't get a long-term deal. I think it happened in that one moment. But I do think this team is pretty solid. I like down the board. I like where they are at running back. I love where they're at. Jordan Reed has turned a corner in terms of, he used to be a guy who needed to be 100% to play. Otherwise, he was out 7 games a year. Seems to be a guy who can now deal with the nicks and the bruises and play. And I'll be honest. If you guys have not, unless you're a Redskins-obsessed person, you have not seen what Jordan Reed is capable of. He's the best receiver on that team, and I know Deshaun Jackson's there. So between who they have talent-wise on offense and adding Norman, which is the only place where I'm in favor of a team, there's like 2 or 3 places I'm okay with splurging financially. I love that they went and got Norman. I'm sorry, I'm picking my guys. I do think the Redskins will win the division.
It's not awful because I don't think a wild card's coming out of this division. I think it's going to be like 9-10 wins possibly winning it. We talked about on the air, I think this is the greatest division in the history of sports. Not these 4 teams are great, but just the history and the rivalries. It's always fun watching these teams go at each other. But when I assess NFL teams, I start with the quarterback. And if you rank the quarterbacks, it's hard to have Cousins be the best quarterback. It's a debate between Eli or Romo. And the reason I kind of side with Eli is because he never misses a game, and Romo you don't know. And they lost so much on defense to suspensions, the Cowboys. And the pressure the Giants feel, I think Jerry Reese is going to lose his job if the Giants don't win this division. They spend too much money on defense to have them not improve vastly. They went 6-10 last year. You got Odell Beckham Jr. Eli very quietly had a great season last year. So it kind of points to the Giants. I can't say that with any certitude at all, but I'm going to rank it by quarterback, and I have Eli winning the faceoff just because I don't know if Romo can play 16 games.
Well, at what point do we stop? The Dallas Cowboys are the most talented team if Tony Romo stays healthy.
Yeah, if is not a good way to make
You have 3 guys on the defensive side of the ball suspended. Randy Gregory, you got Lawrence and Rolando McClain. So you have no pass rush. You have no cornerbacks. You decide, rather than take Jalen Ramsey, we're going to take Ezekiel Elliott. So now you have...
I disagreed with.
We have Ezekiel Elliott, who is, by all accounts, going to be possibly the Offensive Rookie of the Year. You also sign Alfred Morris. So, I mean, it's too much on that as far as running backs are concerned.
And they're totally confused. Well, what are you? Which running back do you want to play?
Well, Ezekiel Elliott's going to be the guy that runs the ball, and he's probably going to be the guy that you see for all 3 downs.
And is Alfred Morris even there by the time they get to mid-September? Like, do they keep him?
Well,
it's a weird situation.
And then, as far as Washington's concerned, you lose Terrence Knight, and you lose Jason Hatcher. Kirk Cousins, listen, if the general manager, ownership, coach don't feel good enough about Kirk Cousins to take him off of the franchise tag, which is $20 million, $19.9 million, and give him an extension, how am I supposed to feel about him? And like Don said, there's only a couple things I know. I'm sure of death, I'm sure of taxes, and I'm sure that Eli Manning is going to play 16 games, and I'm also sure that you'll probably never have abs. But the point being,
confirmed.
The 2 most important things in the NFL right now are the quarterback position and it's your ability to put pressure on the quarterback. And with all the money the Giants spent, I understand team chemistry and everything else, but when you look at this Giants team, 6 games they lost when tied or leading in the last 2 minutes of games last year. 6. They lost 6 games like that. They have to be better defensively. I'm not saying great, but they can't be historically bad. They were historically awful.
You're so right, because you look at their record and you say bad team, but there were so many games that they blew that they could have very easily won 9 games.
But isn't that what bad teams do?
But bad defenses, and they corrected the defense. The only concern I would have about the Giants is free agency. When you try to be all in on free agency, that chemistry, you can't afford to get off to a bad start. You can't lose 3 of the first 4 games because you're trying to get everybody on the same page. So their training camp is going to be huge. But they corrected the one big problem that kept them from literally winning 3-4 more games than they did. So that's why I think they've got the shot.
Well, you got Hankins back. You sign Snacks Harrison. You add Olivier Vernon. You got JPP on a 1-year deal.
That's huge.
That's huge. You get Jackrabbit Jenkins.
Yeah.
You got DRC. You draft Eli Apple. And when you look, best quarterback in the division, I don't care what you say about Tony Romo, most consistent is Eli Manning. No, not. It's Eli
you're right.
Manning.
You're right. It's Eli Manning. You could say
best offensive
who has the
weapon.
most talent in the quarterback position? I might say Tony Romo. Eli Manning is the best quarterback in the position.
And he's got better every single year under McAdoo, and so is Odell Beckham. So you got the best quarterback, you got the best offensive weapon, and if you look at the defensive line of the Giants, it should be vastly improved. And their secondary, in my opinion, is better than the secondary for Dallas. And maybe Washington probably has the better secondary with the addition of Josh Norman. But still, man, I'm putting my money on Eli Manning and Odell Beckham.
Well, and you didn't mention one thing. What if, big if, we know, what if Victor Cruz is healthy?
Or Sterling Shepard, who I thought was a sneaky good pick in the second round.
I mean, they were really just singing his praises during
Donnie, they averaged 26 points. Eli Manning thinks they can average 28. So just don't have a historically bad defense. And now all of a sudden you look at the 6 games you lost in the last 2 minutes of those games with a halfway decent defense. Now you're talking about maybe a 10-win team.
You guys have talked about all of those things with the Giants, the major offseason moves, obviously Eli Manning, but nobody has mentioned the fact that they are dealing with a first-year head coach in Ben McAdoo. Is that a concern for this team?
Well, it's a first-year head coach, but it's somebody that was here already. And McAdoo, that offense worked. He came in to correct Eli Manning, and it worked. So the fact that he had been here, there's comfort with it, it was working for them. I'm less concerned about that than if they had plucked him from another organization and trying to get acclimated and learn everything. He knows the system offensively. He knows these players. So I think a little less of an issue than if they had gotten him from someplace else.
Well, the biggest problem, of course, is Spagnuolo. That's the thing you don't understand is how is that change not made? I mean, yeah, they lack talent there. Well, let's be honest. They were historically bad. I mean, this is a team. Think about if they don't spot Carolina 40,000 points or whatever they did to start that game. Think about what they're capable of doing. Now, I'm not going back on my pick. I do think the Redskins can be the best team in this division and win, but you guys make good points. I mean, without the mistakes, the Giants do have talent.
You know, you can talk about coaching, but there were several people in the NFL that said the Giants had the least amount of talent in the league.
Yep.
I mean, so how do you, that's why I really wasn't, I understood what they did with Tom Coughlin. Maybe it was time. But when you're trying to coach defense, well, offense, I think it was the exception because they have talent there. But defensively, the least amount of talent, how can you kill a coach when you can't make that work?
Defensively, you give up 6,700 yards. 6,700 yards last year, and still somehow you managed to be 6-9. I mean, you managed to be 6-9. You blew the 6 games like I talked about. You got Eli Manning. I don't think, as far as your question is concerned with the coaching staff, is you did keep the defensive coordinator. Now, probably the bright spot of your team has been offensively. So that's not going to change. McAdoo, maybe, I don't know if he calls the plays or if he decides to call the plays or not, but there's a relationship between him and Eli. And let's face it, the most important players on this Giants team are Odell Beckham and Eli Manning.
They kept everybody.
Everybody.
I mean, so only Tom left, which really placed all the blame on him, I guess. But so that makes it, I think, a little easier for McAdoo.
Let's talk about the fun, too. Can we appreciate Josh Norman and Odell Beckham Jr. twice a year in division games? That's going to be a lot of fun.
I appreciate the fact that you guys are all in on the Giants. Redskins over here. I do have a nugget here. Over the last 10 seasons, 12 of 56 first-year head coaches have made the playoffs. That's only 21%. So the odds not in McAdoo's favor, but certainly that could always change. Any of these teams Super Bowl bound?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when you look at Super Bowl teams, you look at teams, again, that can sack the quarterback and have elite quarterbacks. I don't know. I mean, had this been year 2 of the Giants with some of these new additions and to see what Vernon can do and JPP can do, I'm still not 100% sold. We had Chris Canny, who played for the Giants, on our radio show, and we asked him the question, when you watch this Giants defense this year, does it hurt your soul? And he said, yeah, it makes me sick to my stomach. There's no leadership. It just looks like they're lost, and the give up is just, it's too easy to watch them give up.
They're the Giants. This is the problem. Watch this half step that I take. While I think the Redskins could win the division, I don't think we could ever win the Super Bowl this year. The Giants, should they make the playoffs? I'm sorry, guys. I'm throwing numbers out the window. I'm just talking about life. It always feels like the Giants can win a Super Bowl.
Wasn't that a Coughlin thing as well, and he's no longer there?
Maybe it was. Maybe.
Sorry.
Maybe it was, but it feels like every 5 years this team just makes a run, and you never know.
I was just going to say that. Well, everybody will say, well, the Giants can make it. They won a Super Bowl at 9-7, 10-6. They can do it. But look what walked out the door since that last Super Bowl. No Tom Coughlin, no Justin Tuck, no O.C. Umenyiora. I mean, these were guys that were leaders. That's the one thing that concerns me about the Giants tremendously. Who's the leader of this team? Is it Eli? Well, Eli couldn't control Odell Beckham Jr. in that Carolina game. And, on the defensive side of the ball, who's the leader? They haven't had anybody since Tuck and O.C. and Roll left.
You just said why people then pick Romo over Eli. Because it makes no sense that a quarterback that good isn't hands down the leader of his football team.
Well, no,
that doesn't make sense.
No, see, I hate that. That's a common misconception. You have some guys that are really good players, really good at what they do, that aren't natural leaders. Like Kevin Durant is not a natural leader. He's a really good basketball
quarterback position.
It is, though. You can have really good quarterbacks that don't take on a leadership role. Cam Newton, I think, leader. Tom Brady, leader. But there's really good quarterbacks.
Leader. The guys who win Super Bowls, leaders.
No, listen, and he's a leader on the field, there's no question, but I don't think he's going to be able to go to Vernon and say, you got to get off to a better start. We paid you a ton of money. I mean, I think he's a leader in that huddle, but I don't think he's the kind of guy like a Tuck or an O.C. or an Antrell Roll that'll say the things necessary, rub people the wrong way on the other side of the ball. Defense and offense, very strange dynamic.
There's a big difference. There's a separation. You could have a vocal leader, and you could have a guy that leads by example.
He's Derek Jeter.
Exactly. Eli Manning is a guy who leads by example, and you've heard some of the things in the media over this offseason he said about Odell Beckham. Make sure you're focused on football. We want to use you more in different positions on the field. Maybe don't get caught taking pictures with Khloe Kardashian. Make sure your focus is football.
And there's something from
does look nice,
there's their dynamic of it's Eli, and I love Eli, but Odell, you got to do a little bit better this year than you did last year, or you've got to do better than you did last year. The Macho Man Randy Savage of the leadership.
Now you're talking my language.
He's not a grab the lapel and get in the face guy. He's going to be Odell.
He's a weird, derpy face on the sideline guy.
How dare you?
If he stops doing this on the sideline, maybe people would respect him more as a leader.
The Patriots dominated the AFC East yet again for their 13th division title in the last 15 seasons, also 7 straight. But a federal appeals court today rejected Tom Brady's attempt to get a new hearing on his Deflategate suspension. Brady was asking for the full second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to hear the case. This obviously changes things, or maybe changes nothing, but it is certainly something that may affect the way this division shakes out. Rick, if Tom Brady is suspended for the first 4 games, do the Patriots win this division?
As a Jets fan, I hate to say this, but yeah, I absolutely think they do. And Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy who's only had 31 career attempts, but when you put him in a Bill Belichick system with now a healthy Deion Lewis, you had Martellus Bennett, you have Gronk, Edelman's back healthy, Amendola. I mean, there's enough weapons to believe that you look at the schedule, maybe at Arizona, they'll probably lose that game. There's no question in my mind that they probably go, at worst 1-3. And even if they go 1-3, Tom Brady coming back at Cleveland for his first game, 12 games remaining, you have to think he wins at least 10 of those. So you're looking at a team that probably wins 11 or 12 games without their starting quarterback for the first 4. And again, we talked about this earlier on in the show, is that's all you need, Tom Brady, is to be that motivated.
Yeah.
And you know what? This Patriots team, if you look what they've done in the offseason, it's going to be a scary team to play against offensively. You got the 2 tight ends. Martellus Bennett is a beast. He might be the biggest guy I've ever seen in person on a football field. He's as big as the defensive lineman. And now with a healthy Gronk, healthy Edmund, I mean, it's going to be a tough team to beat. And it pains me to say that as a Jets fan, but, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when you look at their schedule, I mean, they get Seattle, but it's at home. So this is the team to beat in the AFC.
Well, if not the Patriots, who? If you use my quarterback formula, isn't Tom Brady 12 out of 16 games better than any other quarterbacks in the division? We don't know who the Jets quarterback is going to be. I'm so tired of, this is the year Ryan Tannehill finally comes together. We're waiting for that forever. I just don't know who could take advantage of it. The Bills had a nice season last year, but still not a playoff team. The Jets won 10 games, but again, who's their quarterback? You know, Miami, I just think that they'll go 2-2. Even if they go 3-1, they'll win the 10-11 games. Let's not forget that Belichick got Matt Castle to go 11-5 in 2008 when Brady got hurt. So this is the right team to lose the starting quarterback for the first 4 games.
It almost would seem silly if any of us picked anyone who wasn't the New England Patriots, right? Like, you can basically map out this season in the AFC East, and it looks exactly like last season, regardless of those first 4 games, if Brady's there or not. I mean, you have a chance that Buffalo and the Jets make it interesting for a while, and you think one of them may be a factor. Miami, you don't end up thinking about it at all, and when it's all said and done, you're talking about a dominant Patriots team again. I don't see how the reign for the Patriots is anywhere near over.
I honestly think the better debate is who finishes second.
That's a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think the Buffalo and the Jets are the conversation. I mean, I don't know if we're overlooking something in Miami, but no.
No love for Adam Gase, new head coach, former Bears offensive coordinator.
Well, where is he coaching?
Miami.
Correct. So we've answered it. No, I just hard for me to see anything changing there. Anything that was big enough that changes the culture.
Well, he fixed Jay Cutler, and the hope is he goes down and he fixes Ryan Tannehill. But you lose your running back.
Jay Cutler got fixed.
Apparently, somewhat.
Okay.
Somewhat. We put a spare tire on it. He's fine.
You're right.
But I think when you look at this Patriots team and you look at what Bill Belichick always talks about, he says the first 4 weeks is essentially extended exhibition. So they look at these first 4 games. It gives them an opportunity to see what Garoppolo can do, but I don't think he is overly concerned about the first 4 games. And the best part of it is this is one of the hardest teams to beat in the NFL at home. And 3 of the 4 games Tom Brady's going to miss are at home.
Yeah, that's so key. Plus, when you look at the division, yeah, we talk about the Jets' schedule being tougher. It's the same for the Dolphins and the Bills and everybody else in the division too. Now, I don't want to disrespect those teams. I think Rex has done a good job in Buffalo. I think Miami could be maybe an 8-9 win team if things break, but it's going to take more than 8-9 wins to win this division.
Yeah, even with the 4, if Brady's out.
I'm telling you, I would be shocked if you tell me that the Patriots are only going to win 10 games. All right, I wouldn't believe you, but it's still probably going to be enough to win the division.
How funny is it that we spend all this time talking about whether Brady will get the 4 games? And as you pointed out earlier, Rick, they start at the Cardinals. That's tough, right? Fans will get down if they somehow, if they lose to a good Cardinals team.
Yeah.
The 3 weeks, you talk about good medicine. Home Dolphins, home Texans, home Bills. If you're a Patriots fan, are you freaking out?
How are they not going at least 2-2?
I mean, maybe Garoppolo's that bad. I don't know, but like, you can't imagine they do much worse.
And the gift of the Browns, is that what that is in week 5?
Yeah.
Tom Brady's first game.
Hey, hold on. That's RG3 versus Tom Brady for the first time in Cleveland. Everyone slow down one
If RG3's healthy.
Yeah, okay. You know what?
How dare you, Doug?
Still
How
a real
dare you?
rebuilding team.
I'm sorry.
Poor guy.
So what will tip the scales then? As you guys discussed, the second team. What would tip the scales for a second team to make the playoffs from this division?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think, first of all, it's hard to even answer it, though, when we don't know the Jets' quarterback situation, right? And with the Bills situation, there are some. I like Tyrod Taylor. I think he sort of gets a tough rap. That team is interesting, but spending my time in New York as an objective non-Jets Giants fan and watching Rex over the years, I have no faith, especially now with not one Ryan, 2 Ryans. That team's going to implode at some point. Like, I just don't have faith in the Ryan.
Well, you got one wild card, right? Because you figure the North is going to produce the other wild card. So is it possible to make the playoffs as a second-place team in the division? Sure. And I'll give the Jets the nod, and you know this being a Jet fan, and I've been covering the team for 15 years. They're pre and post. They do play the Patriots tough. So if it comes down to a tiebreaker and they find a way to just have a better divisional record, then maybe the Jets can sneak in as a 9-win team and maybe get that second wild card. But it's still going to be tough with that.
And you got to worry
about.
You
said 8-8 earlier for the Jets.
But so 8-8, ball bounces. You go 7-9, you go 9-7. But that's probably the best hope in which to go, is because good divisional record, get the tiebreaker. But I really think you're only going for one wild card, right? It's going to be Cincinnati or Pittsburgh, whoever doesn't win.
Or Baltimore. I mean, I think Baltimore's going to be much improved. So,
right,
the Raiders should be good this year. There's a lot of wild card things to worry about in the.
Indianapolis will be better. Houston will be good. I mean, there's a lot of teams in the AFC you have to worry about. So listen, I think when you look at the Jets too, and unfortunately for the Jets, is we were hoping when you got the schedule, first 4 games, and how smart is Tom Brady? Do you see what he did to his contract? His base salary this year is $1 million. $1 million. He just took all signing bonus, knowing that there's a chance he's going to get suspended for the first 4 games. I think that's why everyone hates the Patriots, because they're that far ahead of us. Bill Belichick is like Dr. Evil. If you're thinking about it right now, he already thought about it 3 months in advance and gets it done. But the Jets don't have the Patriots until the last 6 weeks of the season, so you're going to see the Patriots twice. So you put that on top of the fact that the Jets' first 7 weeks are ridiculous. You got Pitt, you got Arizona, you got Seattle. So there's no room for error, especially you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah,
we don't know what Geno Smith played one game last year. So he's going to just jump into the first 7 weeks of a season that looks, I mean, if you get 3 wins, if you go 3-4, you're probably pretty happy if you're the Jets. So, I mean, there's a lot of question marks with, I think there's more question marks with the Jets and with the Dolphins. I think Buffalo could be that one team, but who are they offensively? Are they going to let Tyrod Taylor throw the ball? I mean, they got LaShawn McCoy, they got Sammy Watkins. I mean, that is an explosive team, and one thing that Rex Ryan has done in his past as a head coach is kind of stifled his offense. So what are you? Yeah. And there's a lot of pressure on him between Jim Kelly saying it and then Rex Ryan saying it, if I don't make the playoffs, I'm going to get fired. So
it's so frustrating with the Jets, right? Because they've got Forte, a good running game even last year, so they replaced that. They've got 2 really good wide receivers, a really good defense. But the one thing you can't not have is a quarterback. If they get decent quarterback play, this is a good football team. We just don't know who's going to be the quarterback and whether he'll be decent.
Well, here's my problem with the Jets is that you're in salary cap hell, right? Like you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. You got Muhammad Wilkerson on the franchise tag. He's unhappy. You got no quarterback. And there was no new shiny toy because you had no money to sign. So where are we going to take that step? We had 10 wins, didn't make the playoffs, but that's what any NFL team wants. Week 17, you control your own destiny. So how do we get better? Because our schedule's tougher. And we have plenty of people that come on our radio station and talk about, don't let Ryan Fitzpatrick's numbers fool you. They played a lot of bad defenses this year. That's not going to be the case. So how do they get better? You have no money to spend. At least with the Giants, you signed Vernon, and you got JPP back, and you signed Snacks Harrison. Mm-hmm. The Jets, you lose Snacks Harrison, so maybe you're not as good against the run. You got Mo Wilkerson, who's coming off a broken leg, and he's upset. So ultimately, you're counting on Leonard Williams to have an unbelievable second year, Calvin Pryor to take that next step, Lorenzo Malden to take that next step. You're counting on young guys. You don't have a flashy free agent that you paid all this money to that's going to step in and make you that much better. And on top of that, you got a guy that didn't play last year as your quarterback, which is the most important position in the sport.
As of right now, yep.
How does the Wilkerson situation play out?
I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised that it's taken this long. But if you're the Jets, you have to think, you have to make some sort of decision here. We're talking about key players on this team that they don't have any idea on both sides of the ball. So I'm not sure how this ends up playing out. But one way or the other, I don't know which one you deem. Of course, you look at the Fitzpatrick situation as being more important. But
there's a deadline on the Wilkerson situation, isn't there?
Friday. Yeah. We'll get an answer one way or the other. But you want to have a happy and productive Mo Wilkerson.
Well, you absolutely do, but I mean, and this is kind of what you're dealing with Pat Riley in the D Wade situation, is that professional athletes, although you make a ton of money, you're still a human being, and at some point you want to be treated with the same kind of respect. If you're an organization that preaches loyalty, go to the wall for us. At some point, you're a homegrown guy. You keep your mouth shut. You're a leader like Mo Wilkerson's been. Teammates love you. Now all of a sudden, I want to get paid, and they're not willing to give him the extension he's looking for with the guaranteed money. $15.7 million is nothing to shake a stick at. But again, guy snapped his leg in week 17. So in the NFL, it can get taken away from you so quickly. Is at what point, because it is smart business, if you think about it, you could sign him to the franchise tag this year, give him the franchise tag again next year, and in 2 years you get 2 of his primetime years for less money than Olivier Vernon's getting up front in his contract.
Oh yeah, no one disagrees that the franchise tag is a great option from the team standpoint. Right. It's the players who.
And how does it make them feel?
Guaranteed money. Yeah, guaranteed.
But see, that's always my argument about why. And I don't care what you do in a CBA negotiation in the NFL. There's too many guys, and they'll never be guaranteed contracts because there's only 16 games, and the threat of you possibly being cut, losing your money. I can't go into a season and be like, you know what, I'm on the franchise tag, so I can't play well, because next year I'm going to be a free agent and I got to get paid. And they always talk about in the NFL, right? Put it on the tape. So you're going to go out there, keep your mouth shut, and play because you still want to get paid, and the owners know that.
For those wondering what the odds are of the Patriots, who we've been speaking of here in the division, making the playoffs, 64% of teams starting 3-1 went on to make the playoffs. 2-2, it was 36%. Only 14% of teams starting 1-3 made the playoffs in the last 10 years. We mentioned that, of course, because of the Brady situation, with him currently still being out for those.
None of those teams are the evil empire.
On the latest episode of The Bill Barnwell Show, I talked to ESPN The Magazine's Mina Kimes about the latest episode of The Bachelorette. You can check out the show on iTunes or by going to the ESPN app on your phone.
Welcome back to First Take. The American League defeated the National League last night in the All-Star Game, 4-2 the final score. And that, of course, means that the American League has home field advantage in the World Series. Since 1985, the team with home field advantage has won 24 of the last 30 World Series and 9 of the 13 under this format. Guys, is it time for baseball to abandon this rule?
It's so stupid. I mean, I can't imagine there's a sports fan out there who thinks this is reasonable. I mean, first of all, unless you're a player who directly thinks you're going to be impacted by this, why do you really care? And second of all, it's just silly. It goes against what the All-Star Game is supposed to be. I mean, look at this weekend, right? The home run derby is totally meaningless, but it's a blast. It's the most fun part of the week. So the idea of trying to take this game, which is inherently not serious, right? You can't have pitchers throwing their hardest. You can't risk their health. Why would you make it have an impact? It just doesn't make any sense.
It's hard to believe it's been going on for so long. 2003 was the first All-Star game
after the
which
tie.
we had this. And the tie, I thought, was great because it was something different. There was controversy. They ran out of players, and Joe Torre, remember, was talking to the commissioner, Bud Selig, and that was memorable. Yesterday was memorable. I mean, I was listening. John Shambi and Chris Singleton did a great job for us on radio, and then when I got to the hotel, I got to watch what Fox did. They did a tremendous job. I was bored, and I love baseball, but I'm a Met fan. I want the Mets to have home field advantage if they get to the World Series. That's not enough to intrigue me. It was a 4-2. It doesn't work, and the ratings have shown. They wanted to try to get the ratings better, get more people interested. No one cares that it's related to home field advantage. Get rid of it. It's stupid. Give it to the team with the best record.
Well, I think you have to decide what you are. Are you about entertainment, or are you about baseball purists who appreciate strategy? They want to see Ned Yost manage a game, and you want to see a 4-2 game where now, ultimately, the American League has home field advantage. And there's some teams, we argued this last year with the New York Mets, just get them in the playoffs. Doesn't matter if they have to go to L.A., wherever it is, home field doesn't make a difference. Some teams, yeah, I would agree with that if you have a great pitching staff, but if you could have Game 7 in your stadium, and you deserve it because you have the best record in the sport, then that's how it should be. Championships are important. Like Peter said, there's only a couple teams that probably think they have a chance to be in the World Series, but you play 162 games. This isn't a 16-game schedule. 162 games to hopefully win a World Series. And if I'm going to be the team with the best record, I deserve home field advantage.
You know, and Jose Fernandez is a pitcher for the Miami Marlins, who right now have that second wild card spot. And he's thinking about throwing cookies to Ortiz because that was his favorite player growing up.
Understandably, by the way, right?
But I'm saying this is a guy that benefits. But this is a guy that benefits if the National League wins and they can get home field advantage, and he didn't care.
It's what you said, Rick. They're totally halfway in on this issue. Let's decide what this is supposed to be. I remember, was there anything better than Cal Ripken Jr. hitting the home run his last year? That's what the All-Star Game's about. Let's look at who does the All-Star Game the best. The NBA. What's it about? It's about the celebrity culture. It's about having fun. This game should feel like a rock and jock. They should be having fun. They should be mixing it up. Like you said, the tie was fun. Improvising, doing something you could never do in a real game that matters. Adding this stupid element of, no, but here it's really serious. It's totally counterintuitive to what All-Star Weekend is. And as Rick, as you always tell me, as a player, it's about rest that weekend. It's not about taking it seriously.
No, you don't want to go to a game and know. Like if you're a guy on the Chicago Cubs, and let's face it, when you look at this All-Star Game, you have Major League Baseball doesn't set it up so you have the best pitchers available or the best players available. I mean, if you want it to be that important, make sure the Major League Baseball schedule ends so guys like Madison Bumgarner or your best pitchers are available to play in the game, because it's going to dictate what's very important as far as home field is concerned. But also, what did the NHL All-Star Game show us this year? Was that fans responded to a guy like John Scott, who didn't necessarily want to be there. He didn't deserve, as far as stats are concerned, to be there, but you fell in love with the pure enjoyment he felt from being at the game. And you can't do that. You can't enjoy yourself, truly enjoy yourself, if you're actually worried about the outcome of the game. And the game is meant to go have a couple of drinks with your buddies, maybe show up hungover. I'll never forget my first All-Star game.
You've done that, Rick.
My first All-Star game in the AHL, we're up in St. John, Newfoundland. Get to practice. We had to practice that morning. Coach goes, all right, fellas, whoever's had less than 4 hours of sleep, back of the line. 4 hours or more, front of the line. I don't want anyone screwing drills up. But that's what it was about. It was about going, taking a deep breath, just going back to enjoying what you're doing. There's no consequences.
And yet that blueprint hasn't worked in the NFL because the criticism of the Pro Bowl has always been, this is boring.
Well, there's too much at stake. I think what we all want to see, and the reason why the home run derby was enjoyable was because he's hitting balls almost 500 feet. And the reason now that the NBA Slam Dunk Contest is back and it's kind of cool to watch is because you're seeing stuff you've never seen before. And with the NFL, make it a skills competition. Show me. I want to see a quarterback throw it as far as he can throw it. I want to see a 40-yard.
Throw it over that mountain down there.
Like Uncle Rico. I want to see a 40-yard dash. I want to see extraordinary feats of athleticism, and that's what you saw with Giancarlo Stanton. And again, chicks dig the long ball, and you're playing 162 games. Don't tell me that deep down inside, Major League Baseball doesn't think, like, maybe we should start sprinkling some amphetamines and some PEDs back into this game so we can see more stuff like this.
And also, you want to be entertained, right? And because Terry Collins wants to manage it straight up, Bartolo Colon doesn't pitch, Familia doesn't pitch. I mean, how many people wanted to see Colon? Heck, I wanted to see Colon bat.
I
wanted to see Colon try to steal a base.
So now Colon, at 43, gets to go to the All-Star game. He doesn't play. Stupid. You know, I mean, does that really make sense?
And you know what the problem with that is, too? And this is something that you see, like Noah Syndergaard's there. If you're not going to pitch, don't go, because it's not vacation. Like, you may think it's vacation. You go and you have to go to do all sorts of different things. You got like, it is not time off. If you're not going to pitch, you're not going to play. Yep, I was an all-star. Relax. It's more important to make sure that the second half of the season is where you shine, especially if you're dealing with a bone spur in your elbow.
Over the weekend, Draymond Green was arrested on assault charges in an East Lansing, Michigan restaurant. Police say it was basically an altercation between two men, no injuries, but Charles Barkley has addressed the incident on the Dan Le Batard radio show yesterday.
Good for Draymond Green. You and these other idiots at the press have given these fools powers to tweet, say anything they want to about these professional players. You know, I don't do any social media whatsoever. But your ilk, Dan, you reporters, y'all read these fools' tweets. Y'all make them feel like their opinion is important. Their opinion is important. It's just not important to me. But y'all have given these fans a voice where they think they can disrespect these players because of the amount of money they make and things like that. So more power to Draymond for slapping the hell out of that kid, whoever he was.
Magic Johnson also weighing in on Twitter saying, talked with my friend Draymond Green and he was very apologetic to the Warriors organization, fans, and everyone involved. Known Draymond since he was a freshman at MSU, and he's a good person with a big heart. He continues to give back to youth around the country. Rick, what is your reaction to the support for Draymond Green given the situation?
Well, I think as an athlete, you deal with similar situations. It could be at a restaurant, it could be at a club, it could be at a game. I mean, and sometimes you have to realize, every time, 100% of the time, you have to realize that when you are in the spotlight, when you're a professional athlete, when you make that much money, is you're no longer a regular person. I mean, you have to understand for the duration of your career, your reputation, your actions, that's your business. That affects the bottom line. How owners, how GMs look at you, the fact that you can be suspended. I think if anything, we talk about this on our radio show, is you got to have better friends. Like, I know growing up, I had my buddy Pete and my buddy Such. You'd be in situations like this, and again, I always listen to Herm Edwards. Nothing good happens after midnight. Apparently this happened at, 2:30 in the morning, is you got to have better friends. You have to have guys that know if you get in trouble, it affects all of us because you're the professional athlete. You're the one that's going to have to pay the price. It may not be as far as getting put in jail or anything else, but every sports talk radio show, everything else, especially when you have the reputation now that Draymond Green has around the NBA.
That's my concern about it. A couple things. One, I don't know Draymond Green at all. Sure, he's a good guy. This doesn't make me judge his character as a human being at all. We do that way too much in the sports media. But there's only one person to blame, him. Charles can make excuses and talk about empowering Twitter trolls and things of that nature, but the bottom line is, this is about Draymond. Yeah, he now has a reputation for kicking people a little bit low every few weeks, right? Don't now give people a reason to start thinking that's who you are off the court. And as far as Chuck goes, he's one of the most entertaining guys in the history of sports television. Forget his incredible career, but he has officially become my dad. Charles Barkley is now the kind of guy where occasionally his opinions are amazing, and sometimes you're like, Dad, stay off of Facebook, you're making no sense. You cannot tell NBA players it's okay to sometimes slap someone if they have it coming. It's just not possible. You're going to affect your own pocket.
Well, I want to turn his analogy back at him. He says that we in the media give the Twitter trolls, empower them by reading their tweets and interacting with them. Well, don't you empower these people by punching them out? I mean, you just did for this guy the greatest favor in his life. He's going to tell his grandkids that I got punched by Draymond
Not
Green.
to mention the settlement.
Right, and then whatever the settlement, which means other people, and I'm going to challenge him. Maybe I can get punched by him. So it's all about giving people the time of day, ignoring them. I know it's hard to do, and I know you have to defend yourself. But if you really want to shut them down, ignore them. Walk away. That's what you have to do. So I understand Charles was actually making sense there about how we empower those people, but then by complimenting what Draymond Green did, he completely went against his own analogy.
Well, no, but he's actually practiced what he's preaching. Like, Charles Barkley has actually done what he's talking about doing. He actually threw someone through a window. Like, he is not lying. Like, he fully supports what Draymond Green did. And, I mean, open hand slapping another man, it's aggressive. That's aggressive. But again, you have to realize that, like you said, it affects your bottom line. Like, you have to make sure that during your career you maximize every opportunity you have financially, as far as your brand is concerned, and as much as you want to punch a heckler in the face, you're giving him, like Don said, exactly what he wants. Like, he's doing it for a reason. He doesn't know you. He is doing it because all you're going to do is get so frustrated that hopefully he's got his fingers crossed that you make the mistake and you hit me or do something that now, like Jen mentioned, going to mean some money for me, maybe gets me in the newspaper, and that's exactly what he wants.
And also, let's be clear, guys. Grown-ups shouldn't punch other grown-ups. Like, unless you're being paid to do so in a boxing ring or the octagon, grown-ups shouldn't be doing that. There is a certain level of, and again, not judging him as a human being, it was a bad split-second decision, which he's already said, but you are a role model on a million levels. It just doesn't make sense.
Forget role model, it's just that famous people, unfortunately, part of the negative byproduct of fame is that you do lose a little bit of being an everyday person. Like, if that happens to me or you, maybe we can slap him and it's not a big deal, but once you
definitely famous, Don.
Once you become, all right, outside of Peter, or me, okay? Obviously, everybody I'm looking at is so much more famous than I am, but the rules do change when you become famous. So sometimes you have to take a different road because of who you are.
Well, and I understand Draymond Green, Magic Johnson, the Michigan State connection, Charles Barkley, because it's something that he actually believes in, thinks that Draymond Green was in the right. But how many times can you get away with just admitting you're wrong before it's like enough is enough? Yeah, you hit LeBron. Yeah, you hit Steven Adams. Like, at what point that's just who you are? That's your character.
That's a great point, because you mentioned that when the kick to the groin happened, a lot of people, myself included, were willing to say, well, maybe it was coincidental, right? But then you have little things like this happen, and all of a sudden, it's not just us. There's more important people who might think that. There's the league when they're reviewing something that happens. There's potential sponsors who go, oh, no, that's just who you are. And maybe it's not who Draymond is, but it starts to add up.
Exactly. He's going to be looked at as a loose cannon. I mean, you hear some of the stories in the locker room, and you read, like, him taking his shoes off, not wanting to come out for a game, reaming out his teammates. You're like, oh, he's just passionate. He's just a leader. Now you get to the point with the incidents with Steven Adams, LeBron James, and out the bar. Maybe this guy's just a loose cannon, and there's going to be some teams, maybe not Golden State because he's a leader in that locker room, that are like, I don't know if we want this guy in our locker room.
And if I'm a fan and I want my 15 minutes, that's the guy to go after.
The category for best male athlete is absolutely loaded this year. Curry, Harper, Newton, and LeBron James. We asked on Twitter, who do you think should bring home the hardware this evening? 69% of you said LeBron James should be the best male athlete of the year. Agree or disagree, gentlemen?
I agree. And I don't think that you could have scripted if you're LeBron James any better. You beat a 73-win team. You're down 3-1. It all starts with you finding a way to instigate Draymond Green. As well as he played, I think it has to be LeBron James.
I guess that's the answer, but we can't ignore Steph Curry, right? Unanimous MVP, changed the way the game was played from the perimeter, a scoring machine, and I know he didn't win, but boy, what a season.
I'm going to disagree with everyone and say WWE superstar Seth Rollins should have been in this category. I don't understand. John Cena's hosting. We can't get any, just because it's not legitimate competition doesn't mean, why can't they be the athlete of the year?
Yeah, exactly. Patrick Kane.
NHL love.
By the way, he was pretty good too.
And you know what the beauty of this first take was today? We got to do first take, and I also found a Pokemon for my Pokemon.
That's really, I just want everyone
right here in the studio?
Right there.
First of all, good Pokemon reference. Second of all, I want everyone to know that Rick...
Especially since it went right over my head.
I'm old, I don't get it. Rick DiPietro was legitimately shirt off, showing off his abs in the green room. Fact or not, Don?
Impressive.
They were very impressive, but did his shirt come off to show us?
He did.
Thank you. Just want everyone to know.
Well, I'll start with you. You said I was a little soft, and I had to tighten up.
I know. I can't believe you're so sensitive. I will say this. very excited for my guy John Cena tonight. I really do think he will be. I'm not trying to be a shill for the company. John Cena is going to kill it tonight at the ESPYs. I'm very excited.
He was terrific in Trainwreck. I do recall.
He was good, wasn't he?
He's a star. I mean, obviously we know he's a star, and in WWE he's a star, but his pure comedy chops are incredible.
Speaking of stars, it has been an honor to have these gentlemen sharing the First Take stage with me today. Don LaGreca and Peter Rosenberg of The Michael K. Show. You can catch that from 3 to 7 on 98.7. And Rick DiPietro of The Hahn and Humpty Show, also from noon to 3 on 98.7 ESPN. We'll see you later.
Baseball's second half kicks off with one of the sport's fiercest rivalries when the Red Sox travel to the Bronx to face the Yankees. Coverage begins Saturday at 3 Eastern and Sunday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.